Right. As to count one of the indictment, the charge of false report, can you tell me how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
As to count two, premeditated first-degree murder, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
As to felony murder, first-degree murder, felony murder on count three, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
As to count four, theft of property, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
As to count five, theft of property, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
As to count six, criminal impersonation, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
And as to count seven, criminal impersonation, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
Count eight, tampering with evidence, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
And count nine, arson, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
And count 10, abuse of the corpse, how does the jury find?
Guilty, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, is this the unanimous verdict of all 12 of you who decided this case? May you affirm by raising your hand. Let the record reflect all 12 jurors have affirmed the verdict. As the 13th juror, this court affirms that verdict as well.
Now, the jury will return on Saturday for the penalty phase in this case. They are sequestered, remember that, brought in from another county. There's what's called a change of veneer happening in this one. Let's bring in our think tank now to react to the verdict. Joining us tonight from New York, criminal defense attorney Renee Hill, and from Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorneys Michael Bixson and Eklund Mercy. It is wonderful to see you all tonight. Thank you so much for being on Closing Arguments. I just want to go around quickly and get your reactions to this verdict. Renee, I will begin with you, please.
Well, I'm not surprised, and it was a particularly heinous crime, as many of the trials are that we have here on Court TV, and I'm not surprised that the jury returned the verdict that they did. You know, this is the one thing or the major thing that officers are quite concerned about every day when they go out, is whether or not they're going to make it back home, and traffic stops are extremely dangerous for them.
You're absolutely right, Renee. Well said. Eklund, I want to go to you next for reaction, please.
Yeah, well, I wasn't surprised or shocked, as Ms. Hill stated, at the guilty verdict. I just hope that this sheds a light to law enforcement that the actual, the potential for harm doesn't come from a Black person. It can actually come from a middle-aged white man. This crime was just insanely heinous and insanely traumatic. I believe even the agent that was on the scene will have nightmares from it. So although I'm not surprised by the guilty charges, I'm actually surprised at just how heinous it was to a law enforcement officer.
Eklund, excellent points. And last but certainly not least, Michael Bixson, I want to go to you next, please.
Yeah, I mean, as previously stated, this is not much of a shocker. I think we all knew what the verdict was going to be in this case. The question what comes next, and whether or not they're actually going to give him the death penalty. I mean, this is a particularly heinous and brutal killing. I mean, when you look at all the facts of it, the number of shots fired, the way that they were shot, and the statements that he made after, it's just really, really bad. So the verdict wasn't much of a surprise, but I think the big question is what comes next.
Yes, great point. And we're going to know as soon as this all begins on Saturday. As it begins on Saturday. What we want to look back now on today is some really important moments that occurred. One of which today was with the rebuttal argument. This one made by Prosecutor Ray Crouch on the case. Very compelling arguments before the jury went back to deliberate. We want to share some of that with you again now.
That's an execution. There were no chest compressions. That's an acting job. He was trying to play up again to Agent Neese in that interview. No tears. No tears from Agent Neese. Those are self-serving statements. Oh, I did 8 to 10 chest compressions. No. He walked up, and according to the medical examiner, 2.5 to 3 feet, bam, bam. That is an execution.
Once I realized there wasn't no saving him, I backed up. I think I was on his side. I did. I backed up. I think I was on his side. 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 I think I was on his side I just wanted to close my eyes and pull the trigger. I think it might have been twice. Just,
Why'd you do that?
I don't know. I guess from that point on, I realized how bad it was. You know, it's like a dog. You don't let it suffer. You make sure, you know.
Reflection and judgment. He acknowledges that. I realized. Think about that word, realized. That's reflection and judgment. Acknowledging. Think about what the defendant, in his own words, is saying. Put him down like a dog? Like he's taking an animal to get euthanized? What more reflection and judgment can be demonstrated?
Renee, I want to bring in you on this one. You know, I thought it was brilliant that he played back the defendant's own words. And to me, hearing those words about comparing this sergeant, this hero, to a suffering dog, to me, that was one of the most disgusting things in this case. And I want to get your take on the advocacy, what you thought of that prosecutor using the defendant's own words in those final moments before the jury gets this case to decide his fate.
I thought it was extremely powerful, and he did an excellent job. He used the evidence that he had, and he used it the way he was supposed to use it. I've done that in trials before where I've had the opportunity to have something that's recorded from a witness and played it back and used, different testimony, even when you've impeached a witness and you have it in the transcripts and you read it back to the jury, you point it out and show it to them. It is extremely powerful. And he did an excellent job here.
I'm with you on that one. And where this defendant is saying that, like, as if he's doing him a favor. I mean, he just took this man's life, deprived his wife of a spouse, his daughter of a father, all of that, and then he acts like he's the hero and I'm going to put him out of his misery and shoot him a couple more times. Just despicable, and clearly the jury they weren't buying it. I want to play another clip where Stephen Wiggins decides not to testify today because some of us watching wondered if he would, being that his defense team said that premeditation was the issue they were really focusing on. Let's take a look back together at that moment now.
Mr. Wiggins, have I, along with Mr. Simmons and Mr. Hopkins, fully explained to you your right, absolute right, to testify on your own behalf in this trial?
Yes, sir.
Likewise, have the three of us also fully explained to you your right not to have to testify, to ever have to testify in this trial?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand those rights?
Yes, sir.
And understanding those rights and having talked about that, is it your desire today not to testify on your own behalf?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your
All
Honor.
right, Mr. Wiggins, my job is to make sure that you are making a knowing and voluntary waiver of your right to testify. Do you understand that if you want to testify on your own behalf at this trial, that you have that absolute right and no one can stop you from doing so?
Yes, sir.
But likewise, do you understand that if you choose not to testify, no one can make you testify? Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand that if you choose not to testify, that the court will instruct the jury that they are to have no inference that arises from your refusal or declining to testify at your own trial?
Yes, sir.
Is this a decision that you've discussed with your lawyers?
Yes, sir.
And is this a voluntary and intelligent and knowing decision on your part?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I found that he has knowingly and intelligently waived his right to testify in the case. So.
Thank you, Your Honor.